Greetings, it's December 12th, 2017, and it's the Social Ledger Trial Open Meeting, and with Gary and Robert. So it's an open meeting, so I guess, do we want to start with our frustrations and excitements?
Well, frustration, still sort of looking for direction in the different communities. I see a lot of activity on Holochain and a lot of activity on Telegram. I don't see much gravitation towards social ledger in general from the R-Chain side, and I don't see a center focusing yet on the Holochain side. There are a lot of interest on the Holochain side, but I don't think anybody knows exactly, where things are going to start off. I did enjoy the game yesterday, my introduction to the glass bead game. I had read a bit about the glass bead game on Wikipedia, and then, I've listened to Joachim and Jim talk about the glass bead game. So it was really a lot of fun to get to take part of that glass bead game yesterday. So that's one of the exciting things I've got going on.
All right. I feel guilty not, doing more on the R-Chain side to bring them into Mattermost, which is the real thing, and that's why I keep bringing up the Discord interface as being a priority. So since Discord is where they're doing the work, and that's where we want to bring the social ledger rather than bring them out to Mattermost. But I think that's probably not a lower priority than things like MetaMaps integration with the social ledger.
Yeah, and that's one of those problems, though. It's really going to depend on who shows up and is willing to work on it, because if someone shows up who's willing to work on the integration with Discord, then I think it's a no-brainer. Discord becomes the priority to some extent.
Right, and we don't have staff we haven't staffed up any of the development. It's like Michael wants the open money integration for Christmas, and I want to give it to him. I'm just looking for one more developer on the team. We started it actually, and I had problems with the client for Google Sheets. I do a get client and I get back null. And I'm just following the example exactly. I can't imagine why I'm not getting a client back. But in any case, we may throw out the Google Sheet altogether.
Yeah.
We can go right to CSV or JSON files easily. And the thing is, he has software that does everything. All we have to do is collect the data. And he's looking to do a visualization with Kumu. I mean, we'll just wow them every which way. Um, so, if you type anything into the notes you want, it is an open meeting.
Yeah, at the beginning of these meetings, we often go over our frustrations and our excitements for the week. I guess that's kind of like just putting down something to talk about on the glass bead game.
Yeah, I wish I had better notes here, but oh well. I can't type and think or talk or listen at the same time. You want to check in, Robert?
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking that almost I don't know if you called it frustrations or excitements, but it's almost two in one, like both frustrating and sort of exciting, and is sort of frustrating in sort of hoping and waiting for and trying to promote collaborations and seeing the potentials in terms of different people in different networks and trying to get them together to work on some stuff together can be frustrating at times, but that's also what I'm sort of super excited about too, is to start finding little projects and little prototypes and things to work on together, to things like the glass bead game, and creating small little tools that help us do those things better. And I am definitely very excited about the MetaMapper stuff, social ledger stuff. I guess I'm also a culprit for somebody that's aware of social ledger but maybe hasn't put it into practice. Yeah, and also just generally excited about what's to come sort of in the new year with my involvement in Holochain, and how also Dig Life, and it just seems like there's so many projects that that with people in multiple different groups that I want to find a way to continue working together, and hopefully that sort of pans out and I don't have to go hunting for a job or something again, but for now it's going okay. Yeah. Stop there.
Well, I could say ditto to where you guys are coming from. There is my frustration is that there's just too many channels and I can't keep up with the channels. Excitement is that the sort of the spirit that's coming together largely around the linking of Dig Life, S7, and metacurrency or whatever. Has a really special, sort of almost cathartic presence, and I'm not sure it will lead to anything. On the one hand. On the other hand, I have a better hope now that there might be collaboration on identity, that there might be, collaboration on the social ledger, which is identity. I mean, it's part of identity. What you say and do is your how you are how you are known by other people.
One excitement I'll share that I don't know if if either of you, Jim or Robert, are familiar with, was this video link that was shared in the glass bead game yesterday.
Which one was that?
It is, hold on, let me make sure I'm not. Yeah, this is called the template, the ceremony of original innocence.
I don't know if I saw that one. I mean, the whole energy of co-creation and sort of unification of spirit that is
yes, and the idea of a spirit being somehow involved in this thing, or is the idea of synchronicity, and the person who shared that link yesterday in the channel or in the glass bead game channel just contacted me by direct mail. Now I'm going to see what her direct mail is. Oh, and her direct mail question is, did I receive, well, I won't go any further than that, but we're in the midst of something happening right now, and but it was shared by Consciously Conceptive in the channel yesterday, and I was just wondering if either of you had seen that.
No, I actually didn't get to watch or dive into any of the media links that were shared.
Yeah, well, you can ignore the ones I shared, because I'm often I often will post random things just because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and that was mostly the case yesterday. However, the opportunity to interact in the co-decision making, the co-decision making about how the meeting would proceed, I think was quite valuable. And I want to point out that I think that link is worth looking at, because I don't think it was random. I think it was significant, and I would encourage either of you to watch that. And there is I guess there's a whole series of videos from this group, and trying to remember the name of the,
You mean S7 or the template.org?
Yeah, the template.org. You haven't heard of that, Robert?
No, I just read it off the link that you sent.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. Well, that was the easy way, huh? Okay. But anyway, that's something I can share.
Yeah, to follow up with that, I'm definitely interested in hosting a similar version of that glass bead game, but using MetaMaps. So if you're interested, I'll keep you in mind for an invite to that.
I really would, because I can immediately see the possibilities there. I feel like Anders was kind of heading that way himself in his idea, but he's got so many ideas going on that no telling which one he'll end up following.
I guess one other, I'll just add Secure Scuttlebutt to the list, because I know we tried to connect on there earlier, Gary, and it is a neat group doing very, very similar things. And I updated my patchwork software, and it seems to have resolved all the problems I was having. So we might be able to find each other on there again.
Okay, I really felt I saw everything I needed to see there, And I do understand the value of that particular idea, that we should be able to get one of those things going to great benefit on any sort of mesh network that we start up.
Yeah, and that kind of points to what's kind of neat or different in this distributed space is like apps and how apps work. It's like a whole new frontier where most people wouldn't have kind of almost even a conceptual framing of like how apps work in this new way, where it's all peer-to-peer and there's no one central server or Google thing that has crawlers everywhere and can just give you the information on everything that you need to sort of, because on specifically secure scuttlebutt, you literally need to connect up with people. Otherwise you'll see nothing in the ecosystem, because it's only like 1 or I think 2 degrees of separation away that you see, and anything beyond that is just not on your horizon at all in that system.
All right.
So you literally have to follow people or else you'll see nothing.
Well, so I should encourage other people to join that and then connect up with them, and then my scope would increase proportionately, huh?
Yeah, and even if like we connected, I'm sure it would open you up to a whole other facet of their ecosystem. And it definitely is. Some of their core developers are aware, at least, or have met with, say, Arthur Brock and some people from Holochain, and they're aware that we're doing similar like stuff. But I definitely think in the ecosystem, it's always good to have some redundancies, not just everybody working on the same thing. So,
Okay, I have looked at that a couple of times and asked myself, did I want to try that out again? But you know, based on what you've just told me, I will, you know, in the next few days, get back in there and try to establish links again.
yeah, and ping me at the time, because I'd like to, I don't know, it's finicky about how we can find each other. So if it'd be good to have a live call to do that. But the other thing I would mention is I know that I've seen Jim chatting with the Open App Ecosystem / Collaborative Technology Alliance people on Lumio, and these are basically almost those same people. They're like an overlap of Inspiral and Lumio and Open App Ecosystem. So that's more so, I'd say, where the devs are playing in that space, at least. I don't know what's happening on Lumio. I don't check there that often, but that's another thing for Jim to consider. I know he's done a lot of kind of cross-platform, cross-community, cross-pollination.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that even needs to be on the list. I feel like we've already discussed it fully, but.
Well, we can.
I'll be back in a minute. I'll let you continue, or do you want me to pause?
I pause it for now, Jim. I think this is good time for.
And we're back, and we have Michael with us. Let's go over to the project log here. And what topics are people drawn to from this? How we organize scalable global co-creation. We had started talking about scuttlebutt. I guess there's more to say there. We have the new Earth Global co-creation team on in the trial, and a link with S7, the new maps, the meta maps, integration with the social ledger, and the bead game. On Holochain, the main activity I care about is the identity, and we seem to be collecting a team, collaborating on that with the this decentralized PKI group, who apparently have something running in a distributed PKI system, public-private key system that's revocable and changeable and recoverable, which is pretty neat. We want to get a decentralized identity directory on there, and that's sort of the project that is almost a prerequisite to getting the social ledger up, at least the social ledger 2.0, which we've just begun the design of, but there's no sense putting the prototype onto HoloChain. And we have the open money effort that we're trying to get people on, as I said. Okay, so and Michael came this morning. He's involved with a a decentralized health thing, as well as looking at a agriculture, or more specifically an agriculture collaborative system that we're discussing putting on the social ledger. So I'll stick that here somewhere. Agriculture / agriculture.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a similar sort of design, I would say, to meta maps and different parsing methods for communication, whatever it is. And a lot of it is just making usability up there to get a lot of people in my view, because I don't know, I see the technical stuff is already there. It's just usability is not.
Yeah, so you want a bunch of farmers, to be able to use something like the social ledger.
They don't even know it exists. The thing is, the idea of social ledger and the idea of things like this doesn't exist yet to most people. So first that has to exist, then the tools become more obvious why they exist too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the mistake may be calling it the social ledger, because the social ledger is the record of everything you say and do. It's not really a piece of software. Okay, the social ledger tools just reify that structure and put it under your control. But basically for team building, from the top down, bottom up, middle out, the tool that we have facilitates that. If people use it, that's the issue, is getting people to use it.
I think just in getting people, I can get a lot of people. It's just a matter of how you define the process and what's the project plan to do that, things like that. Because the way to make money out of these type of things is kind of to make people realize that if people go together in certain numbers, they can kind of do whatever they want. There's no real financial limitation. You know what I mean? If you have 100,000 people and each person puts $1 a day, you could easily fund all the economic activities of those 100,000 people. You know what I mean? It's not really that impossible. It's just that people don't believe that it's possible or know that it exists even. Because
Well,
it's just simply not there for them.
if everybody typed /dig command a day, we would be organized as a sociocratic polyarchy tomorrow. And I mean, you know, what we could do together is immense if everyone does a little.
Yeah, that's what I think is the key thing. That's probably the key word right there, is if everyone does a little, then everything gets done for everybody.
And, you know, as I was saying in the meeting before, it's a matter of self-management and, self-leadership. You know, yeah, when you see something spelled wrong in a document, you fix it. Or if the title's bad, you fix it. Or, you know, you suggest a change. Or people are afraid to act. They always feel like, you know, they need to talk to somebody before they can type /dig. But they don't. You know, they have to, you know, they take a chance. And, you know, as Travis says from Consider It and the slider, you know, it's often a good idea just to say something so that you get a reaction from people. You know, I mean, do something. You know, it's better to act and act wrong than not act. At least you get a discussion going. You get, you take, you can stimulate activity, whatever. We can set up a domain for agriculture as soon as either you or Patrick commits to essentially be the lead in the, you know, the sociocratic method. We have a guide and a scribe. The guide is sometimes called the lead, or sometimes called the manager, which is bad. But it really the team decides what the role is, and your role is determined by what activities you commit to. So the label, the labels are very flexible. Excuse me. And then, you know, I can provide some facilitation in getting started with the agriculture domain, which would be great to add to the domains that are in our trial.
I think I'm missing a little context here. I don't know what you're referring to as agriculture stuff. Maybe it's because I haven't met Michael before. And
Hey, Robert. Good to meet you.
yeah, similar. So I heard you say MetaMaps earlier. I've actually been working on that project since 2012. I'm on the Holochain team as well. I don't know where in the ecosystem you kind of came into this space from, but it'd be cool to hear an intro, and maybe I can give a bit of an extended intro. I've kind of already chatted with Jim and Gary a few times, so I'm sure they know me and I know them. But
Oh, okay. So I've been working with Jim before on DiviDAO. You okay, Jim? Okay, and then what's it called? I've been working mostly on economics stuff and research stuff, and especially system dynamics and agent models and things like that. And you know, my primary interest is in startup-related research and basically small groups. You could just call that a cluster, right? Any small group of anything. Could be people in a business, could be bacteria in your eyeballs. You know, it's just a small thing. And the interesting thing about agent-based models is it suggests that pretty much anything can have emergent behavior or sort of appear lifelike. even if it's not living. It's just a matter of getting that emergent. And so Jim's idea I liked a lot because it emphasizes the idea of collective intelligence as an emergent phenomenon. So you're really aiming for that collective intelligence as the goal rather than as a side effect of many random things. And so my project is about bringing ecology to sort of economics. So people in general have a large perception of scarcity, especially when it comes to food, because of the way fiat money works. And, you know, my research is really designed around how do you demonstrate sort of these natural biological laws that are really like not made up, but they're that you can really get high yield of anything, not only food and energy, but materials of any kind. And you know, you can easily get surplus for like as many people as you want, and you can really, there's no such thing as that scarcity, and you can even make the environment more resilient by learning to coordinate better. And so the goal of this project, which was called Health Coin, was actually about nutrition, while bringing agricultural systems together to improve nutrition. So people generally like to come together to get better nutrition, right? Like that's a big thing. And, you know, people are under the impression you need a lot of money like to buy all this overpriced food, and you can't get it through normal farms and family farms, but that's not true. And I've talked to many of them, and it's more or less just an issue of coordination. How do you get like a farmer in Wisconsin to meet people in the city, and like how do they coordinate the growth of like food they want, and how do they send it to them? And so this is what I feel this project will bring to the, you know, my work, and what will it bring as a higher social outcome. And I've worked with something like MetaMaps, and you know, in different visualization graph databases. So it's all great stuff that I'm hoping to learn and participate in.
Cool. Yeah. When you were saying earlier about agent-based modeling, I was curious if you had tools for doing simulations and stuff. Because I like doing graph analysis and that sort of thing too, but I don't exactly have a tool for simulating agent-based systems.
NetLogo is the best one by far.
Sorry, what was it?
Oh, I'll write it for you.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I could go to slightly further extended intro. I definitely like what you were saying about collective intelligence, because that's basically sort of what brought me into this world, is just sort of an interest in that as a topic and how we might augment our intelligence through things like social ledger and that sort of thing. And yeah, in around 2012 is when I started playing more in social media spaces online and found a community called Collective Intelligence and Wisdom on Google+. And sort of through there, we were looking for tools that would help us kind of manage our community's resources, like knowledge resources and stuff. And it just happened that somebody mentioned that there was somebody at the same university I was at the time who was working in the same group and working on a mind mapping tool, and that was MetaMaps, and that's how I met Connor. And through him, I met the metacurrency people and got more deeply involved with kind of that stuff, which originally was being called, well, they're still holding a vision for a thing called Scepter, which is kind of more on the far out there sort of semantic computability thing, but Holochain is sort of the first step towards realizing that larger vision. And yeah, in around September, I started full-time working on the Holochain project in different facets. I'm still sort of an aspiring developer myself, so I don't dive into the kind of deep code stuff all the time, but I am kind of knowledgeable enough to be dangerous in some senses with fiddling with little aspects of code. So, but I'm hoping to develop that more. So that's sort of an area I'm interested in with both Social Ledger and MetaMapper, of like how I might learn while contributing to a project. And yeah, that's That's about it.
Yeah, one of the guys I've been trying to get on this team was a guy in Germany who's mainly interested in training people how to code. And there's a lot of developers I know who are basically, you know, everyone is like for Jim's project, what requires a lot of coders, and we don't have a lot. And a lot of people want to participate but can't code. So the missing link is how do you train a lot of people to code really quickly? And that's another issue, like of just getting a lot of people to communicate together and kind of like structuring it. So, you know, like the resources are all there, oddly enough. It's just a matter of like, how do you get people to talk in a way that's time efficient toward the goal that you want to do. So like learning coding, I think, is very straightforward. There's a lot to learn, and to know specifically what to learn is like getting people to. So a lot of my research has been focused on like communication stuff, like how do you avoid problematic, you know, inefficiency in communication and things like that. And, you know, like I think Jim has a lot of those points covered, to be honest. It's not really like, I don't know you guys, Gary and Robert, as well as I know Jim, but I'm glad to learn about you. And I hope we can get like lots of people like this to just talk with each other, learn about each other, and work together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the goal I'm hoping to achieve as soon. You know, like that's kind of what my focus is going to be.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm interested in too. Like you might have heard earlier in the call, we were referring to this thing called the glass bead game, where it's more or less just initially just a way of getting to know other people in the ecosystem, strengthening the ties there, opening communication channels, and also at the same time prototyping and testing out tools. You know what I mean? It's almost a testing ground to test out some of the tools while we're building these new relationships. And while you were talking about the ecology stuff, I don't know if you're in the holochain Mattermost space, but it brought to memory that there's a local permaculture channel on there that's thinking about using holochain to build permaculturist networks and other sort of local currencies in food networks. So that might be one to check out if you are in the space.
Well, you can add me to those rooms, but I'm fine with that. It's just that's like what's it called? You know, like holochain, like how do I put it? With other types of things, is really based on a lot of like consensus thresholds, which means like if you can get, say, 100 people like involved, it's really about getting 100 people to know 100 other people. If that's like a graph theory problem, right? Like if you want to connect the dots, right? Because usually these ecosystems, from my usual, like the other projects I've been in, is it's usually there's like a central node, right, that connects everybody. Like in this case, Jim. And it's like how, and then like some people may need certain resources to fulfill certain objectives. So that's like you need to meet someone in a node farther away, right? So it's like how do you connect all those nodes and things like that. So I've actually solved most of that problem. So I feel pretty good now about trying to, I'll probably be doing just marketing and stuff in the beginning, just to get people in, because I want to get at least a few core guys in, you know what I mean, that can basically do the development stuff, and people who can lead the training stuff.
Thanks. Now I'm thinking how we get from the old educational paradigm into the lifelong learning, working together, teaching each other paradigm. what's happening is things change so fast that there are no experts to hire. And you know, if someone develops a skill, they may or may not be able to use it. You know, we don't know what they're going to need. You know, there's a gazillion Java programmers, but you know, now there are so many languages emerging for different purposes that, you know, all through my career, I've had to learn something new. I've had to learn new stuff every year. And it's not a matter of going to training courses. It's not, you know, you know, maybe that is good for some people, but it doesn't work practically in business. And, you know, and the way it's done is with the buddy programming or, you know, teams. You know, they specialize to some extent, but they work together. They help each other. And that's the way real learning takes place. You know, I was just thinking about, you know, the enablers of cooperation and you know, in order to have coordination, people have to work out loud. They have to know what other people are doing. And this is the name of the social ledger. Working together, okay. You know, building teams. That's what it's about. The norms, you know, the common habits in a habitat enables emergence. In other words, in a swarm or in a flock, each animal follows very simple rules, and yet together they act as an intelligence.
Yeah, that's agent modeling right there.
So, you know, the social ledger allows you to define the norms or you know, and, you know, everybody has to participate. Everybody has to suggest norms. Not everybody has to subscribe to every norm. They subscribe to the ones they want to. But you get emergent behavior based on those norms. Peer-to-peer contracting, okay? Dig Life, we have, you know, self-management rules. Nobody can tell anybody what to do. But in the self-management principles, the whole organization is made of peer-to-peer contracts. And yeah, when you in a team, you're contracting with the team, which is, you know, when you join an organization, you may contract with them something, but you know, these, whether it's individuals or groups, you are consenting to the contracts, and the organization is essentially made from peer-to-peer contracts that defines the structure. And then we have small groups work better. Okay, and 4.5 ideal. Let's say 7, okay. 12, sticky. And 135, what's the Dunbar number? Unlikely, doesn't happen.
Well, like Dunbar number is mostly like a thing that happens when a community kind of forms like all the circuits it needs to be sustainable. You know, it's not like even in those like sorts of models, there's subgroups like you would see in that one, those links you put up here, new maps, right? It's exactly like how the new maps described it.
Yeah, there's a number of perspectives on it. You know, they did a study on Facebook where they came up with the you know, 135 being about the maximum number of people you can actually have a relationship with. You know, there's different ways of coming up with it, but let's say consensual contracts. Then, you know, and then you need I don't know whether where I should put the decisiveness. The decisive consensual decision making. Full consensus groups just can't reach any decisions. They rarely make decisions. It's very difficult. But consent is different. That if you have an objection, the objection needs to be justified in terms of it's not consistent with the group goals or objectives, or it's not safe enough to try. Experimentation over planning, really, is one of the principles. And I'll put that in here. Okay, otherwise, you know, that's what nature does, constantly experiment. We want to build a system like nature. It has to be an experimental nature. I'm looking to experiment on holochain. I'm not, you know, yeah, I'm planning to do the experiment, but it's still an experiment.
Well, I think that's another thing too. Like people don't seem to are not used to the idea of just trying something just to learn out of it. They like try stuff that either it succeeds or it fails.
Right.
But that's a good point, actually. I love that idea, experimentation over plan. That's such a deep idea. What do you think, Gary?
Am I muted?
No, you're not.
I'm typing up at this moment notes on agent-based modeling, and I'm going to create some links in our digital life collective Hive Mind channel about this, that I had intended to get to this place, and it's just one of those things that I never got to. But I really want to thank you, Michael, for reminding us about all this stuff, because I need to start thinking about this soon, especially with Jim's dig when command. And I keep harping on the dig when command, but it's something I'm excited about.
Event processing, it's what allows the social ledger to ultimately orchestrate processes.
Yes, I'm sorry if I hijacked the discussion, Michael.
No, please. You should. I think it's better if everyone talks a lot and just cuts off and jumps in, because otherwise it's going to be, all lively debate requires just jump in, and it's not a bad thing.
But I want to, we need to, did we add agent-based modeling to our social ledger trial list of things to be investigated? Not here, but up in the 1 through 11 list. Net Logo, Eddie Logic, Russell Standish, Minsky Software, and Steve Keen.
Huh?
I'll do it.
Oh, Dirk is here too, Jim, if you want to say hi.
Dirk. Hi. Do I remember who Dirk is?
He's working with me on the project we just discussed.
Oh. Welcome, Dirk.
Hey. He's Mr. iPhone here, but I don't hear you. Can you speak, Dirk?
Can you hear us?
I guess I could compress those into one line, the line for agent-based modeling.
Why aren't you writing in the log? Are you writing? You're in the log?
Yeah.
My microphone was off. Okay. Can you hear me? Hello together.
Hello.
Hello. I didn't find that button to to go online with my microphone. My microphone was off all the time. Hello. How are you doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah, good. Great.
So we're just went through a number of introductions. We're with the Digital Life Collective, Hollow Chain, Metacurrency, MetaMaps,
ArtChain,
ArtChain Cooperative,
Digital Life Collective. Do you say?
Yeah. And we have this tool to enable collective intelligence that puts a scaffold onto the social ledger of everything we do and say. And this meeting is an open meeting of participants in the trial. And Michael is considering participating in the trial with an agriculture or aquaculture group, or and
yes.
So you have questions, or you want to tell us about yourself?
I wait until my first questions show up. We considered an ICO with a new coin, a new cryptocurrency denoted as health coin, and backed by a supply of healthy proven bioorganic tested seaweed and seafood based food supply.
That's aquaculture.
Agriculture. If you want agriculture based cryptocurrency, where to create a community, a health community, a growing health community with potential of forming a global standard of a tested biological organic seafood, and with a calculation unit called health coin, for example. That's one of the points we're considering right now. And I can say, where is Michael? Michael is offline right now. Where is he?
Oh, I'm
He's
here.
here.
He's here. Michael, hi.
Hey.
Hey. Okay. Wait. Change the screen, maybe. No?
No, no,
Okay.
it's just my camera. I'll set it up for next time. Today
Okay,
I didn't
okay.
set it up.
It's great. Yes, and yes, our plans were creating a new AI based on growing common sense, growing swarm intelligence. That's completely new stuff. And a learning AI, a deep learning AI, but not the classic way, based on an algorithm, on a learner algorithm with growing common sense, however, and based on collective intelligence as a database. That was our second conceptualization, and I think it sounds a little bit promising. I like that idea.
But you would need actual data from the success of the processes that people use, right? I mean, you can't just base deep learning on an algorithm, on an idea. You have to get actual data from the environment.
It already exists. That's already been. Yes. It's already being done all over the place. It's just a matter of explaining to people it exists. The technology is already there and implemented. Yeah. Actually, no, I've talked to several companies who've done it already. They've built the sensors directly into the thing, and then built, like different supply channels, they measure how it's moving from supply to distribution. So that stuff is there. It's just nobody knows. It's mostly within the big industries now, but it's kind of like people don't see it as part of their social ledger and how they can use it to get what they want. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a tool just for like big companies. It can be a tool for pretty much anybody.
So just like other groups in the Social Ledger Trial, Digital Life Collective, the Collaborative Technology Alliance, the Open App Ecosystem, and so on, we're all interested in interchanging the data and visualizing the data. I think. And analyzing the data. Right?
Well, that's not going to be an issue. Dirk is quite good at that stuff, and I think we have a lot of people who can do that stuff. It's just the issue of kind of making it socially relevant for lots of people and not just a specific thing. You know what I mean? Because what DiviDAO solves is it defines a socially relevant thing to make all this stuff work towards. You know what I mean? That's what Robert. Well, if Robert could show, I was just looking at Robert's work on the metamaps.cc. I was wondering if you could just show us some of that stuff to Dirk, and I think it'll be obvious to us from there.
Yeah, you mean like a little mini demo here of what's possible, or I don't know if that's what we.
Yeah.
The video link that I put in the notes goes through a really good demo.
Yeah.
A really full demo. I think it's better if you watch the video. I can put that link in the chat here as well. Unless you want to give a demo.
Well, I think it's good to see it from Robert because Robert has the first-hand sort of experience with it.
That's what the video is. We're at number 6, MetaMaps. It says there's a video link.
Yeah, if you watch that, I gave a demo. We were playing sort of a glass bead game thing where we were just having a conversation about sort of it was in a group that was just getting to know each other, and we were exploring what we might want to do together. And then, afterwards there was people interested as well in MetaMaps, because I kept mentioning that it might be a good game board to play something like that on. And so I demoed it afterwards, and I sort of went through a bunch of the affordances of MetaMaps, and then also showed a bit of how it's integrated currently with Slack in a similar way to the social ledger, in that you can use, it uses a bot instead of slash commands, but using the bot, you can decide any message to map it onto a map. So you can tie a MetaMaps map to a chat channel, and then you can kind of send nodes into the map from the channel. And then also you can have a direct message chat with the bot, and then your replies to the bot, actually the bot comes to you and does almost like a survey. The facilitator creates the survey, and then when the bot comes to you, you can reply to it, and that kind of creates map data as well that is on MetaMaps and shows relations and things like that. So
yeah, if there's something you can show real quick, just to
sure.
just so he has an idea of what's in store for him. But I think it's good. Would be good to watch the whole video.
Yeah. Just 1 second here. I can share screen. So, can you see?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. There's lots of maps. I'll pull up to show you the Slack integration.
Innovation's a wiki game.
Oh, this is just a map that I've created of imagining what sort of games we could play on MetaMaps. But if you come out here, there's a whole directory of maps. It almost works like Wikipedia in a way. Like if you add a node and it's a public node, then anybody else can use that in their maps as well. So it's not just contained to one single map, and you can repurpose nodes across. So I think this is the one we were playing on. And if you look in the video, you'll see there's kind of real-time collaborative concept mapping, and you can move around the nodes and add connections. And then I'll show you if I tie this map to, this is Slack obviously here. So using these commands, I can say set map and then the map number. And then in this channel, it ties the channel to this map I was just on. And then I could, put Gary, and then using reactions, we've imported all the icons from MetaMaps as custom reactions. So if I add this person reaction, the bot automatically clicks the reaction as well. But literally what's happening is now this Gary is over in the map.
Yeah, show him connection or something.
Yeah, so I can draw a connection, say from Gary to Anton, and then label it friends with. Maybe it's not true, but that's the type of thing you can do. And then there's also, there's lots of features, but you can filter. So maybe I want to filter out all the friends with connections or something like that. For each map, there's also a chat stream here where you can have a dedicated kind of chat stream. There's also real-time collaborative, real-time audio and video. If you want to hold kind of a video chat on while you're actually mapping. It's a little buggy. This whole thing was sort of a open source project, unfunded, but it's kind of been coming along slowly since the end of 2012. I don't know if there's anything else you're curious about, but
it's lovely because if you had, say, different farmers and different parts of the value chain, like the whole buyers to sellers list, intermediate buyers and sellers, this is like an ideal way to build consensus on something. And then DiviDAO really kind of makes it even more, kind of gives it much more weight to it as a viable tool, because it establishes a lot of the stronger identifying factors that are needed for transactions and trust and reputation factors.
Mm-hmm. within the nodes, there's actually like, if you double click them, there's kind of a card that you can fill out with further information, like a description and a link and that sort of thing. So, but the other neat thing, because this tool isn't the greatest for, say, actual visualization and algorithmic layouts of, say, like large amounts of data in the same way that like a traditional graphing tool would be, maybe like Gephi or something. But what's neat is you can, I'd say it's best for holding kind of real-time collaborative conversations. And when you say add, like if this is me adding a new node, you can decide what type of thing it is, or you can switch to different sets of these types so that maybe you decide you're only having a sense-making conversation, and then you can switch to that set. And the other thing is that there's import and export. So if you, it's not like your data is locked up in here. If you want to export it out and take it into a better sort of analysis platform or something, you can always just export the map data and do with it as you want. Yeah, so that's kind of a quick little overview. There's lots more to it. And actually, I'll show you briefly. You'll get this as well if you look at the other video, probably better. But this is where the bot is coming to me and asking me questions, and then my replies to it create map data as well. So you can have like a direct message chat with a facilitator bot. And I'll just stop sharing for now.
Yeah, and what we want to do is have populate maps from the social ledger, and we're looking at other integrations as well. But the main social ledger is about team building. It's integrated with the /dig command. /dig team gives us a list of a team in a channel in a domain on a Mattermost server, and there's a whole number of Mattermost servers involved in the trial. And they can have a guide, scribe, actor, or link role. And the links are important because they create the structure, the connections between the holonic structure of the organization that enables a collective intelligence or collaboration among the team. And we just have a network graph integration here, where we show the how people are connected, and we take myself. So you got very strong connections with a lot of folks here. We have people with very few connections, outliers. But of course, this data can be looked at in a lot of ways. And then we have activities in the channel, dig A. And these are things, people have to put them in. This is what I want to work on. This is what I'm doing. And then they can commit to the activity, either, very little or a lot of sweat into the activity. The activities are linked, can be linked. If we can look at the holonic diagram to see where this activity fits within the organization, within the channel, within the team, and it shows who's committed to the activity in this channel, in this domain, BYOID, which is one of the many domains that are in here, which is the Divi-Davi, DAO, DigLife, RChain. Somewhere in here is we have New Earth Global, which is the latest join. Where is it? Oops. I clicked on the channel, so it took me into Mattermost. Go to the channel where the discussion is taking place. Whoops. Not that one. But we basically can see here there's each of these communities, and each activity has a label. So the label builds the language of the social ledger, so that things with common labels across the circles get a virtual connection. And we have documents and links, and links that are shared between holons become connections between the activities. And for currently this is a prototype, and we plan to add event handling and processes, as well as user definable behavior for these different for the social objects that are included in there. And I guess that's enough of that for now. We're looking at doing other integrations, open money, which will have a visualization using Kumu. If you're not familiar with Kumu, very powerful visualization environment. And some kind of integration with new maps, which I haven't figured out exactly what that will be.
Thank you, Robert.
I've sort of seen new maps. It's more of a Hellenic style visualization. I don't know where they're at right now, but I haven't used it myself in a while. The link for Kumu is kumu.io. That's their website.
Kumu.io, okay.
I guess what I was curious about the social ledger as well is I've heard you say it's not intending to be a project management tool, although it would seem that it would serve that purpose very well. And I think, though, that maybe that's where some of the confusion comes with, is trying to use it, well, because some of the actions or tasks that I've seen do sort of seem as like future tasks that aren't done yet, rather than just working out loud, where you're more or less doing a check-in and saying, this is what I did today, which I think
it's a collaboration tool.
Yeah, and in many cases you would link an activity to a GitHub issue. We were looking at an integration with Canboard, where the social ledger functionality would actually be brought into the project management environment, rather than trying to make some new project environment. This creates a skeleton. All the tools are connected to it.
Okay.
And you've got a name, a link, and you've got the metadata, which has the service discovery. What can you do with this object? That's what we're working toward. The service discovery, and then automating the tasks associated with the activity, or at least orchestrating those tasks. First thing is just to create to collect the data of these are the activities in these teams, in this domain, in this organization, and globally, and make it decentralized. Right now we have a central database, so to speak, that all organizations, the information for all the organizations is kept in. And of course, a lot of the information is in the back end. We get it from Mattermost using the APIs. Data isn't kept in the social ledger. It's no, the communications in Mattermost are part of the social ledger, but the data, the data is kept by the application, not by not by the skeleton.
I also think what Gary said would be a good way forward too, of treating this almost like a game that we're inviting some people to play. Because if you're just sort of painting a big picture of how it could work and there's all kinds of things to do and poke around with it and play with, then it might seem overwhelming. But if you invite some people to a game, then they can start getting a feel for how it works, and you know what I mean?
I agree, and doing things like Anders did yesterday, and I'm sorry a couple of you weren't part of that, but basically we got together and we played the glass bead game online in a shared Excel spreadsheet, and it had quite the effect of allowing us to go through mechanically the process of decision making in an orderly fashion. Even though it was a game, so to speak, it really was more of a set of rules how a group of people were going to get together around vague ideas and come up with a plan of action for their gathering. I guess, I don't know if we should spend more time studying the sociocratic model of governance or not, but the idea of governance probably rightly scares away a lot of people, but game tends to attract people to it. Games have the sense of play and enjoyment and pleasure, whether government has the connotation of necessity or need.
Compulsion.
Yeah, exactly.
Violence, aggression.
Yeah, and avoiding those terrible things. Whereas a game, it goes, who wants to fight? You can have fun.
Humans like to play. The most human intelligence is learned is manifested in playing in games.
Learning, yes.
Learning is like gaming. It's not that stupid kind of only what we connotate with video games. But what humans, when a little child tries to learn a certain way, a certain skill, it tries it again and again, and this is like a play. It's like a game playing with a virtual opponent and trying to compete. Or maybe we could go so far and tell that all competing in life is playing like a game. Sometimes a hard and a rough game. Life is a rough game, sure, and.
It's
really funny. Once I had a friend in America who was very similar, looking like you, Gary, and Don Mayfield, and I remember him. He always said in his slow Texan style, "Life is a rough game." I remember that. I will never forget that. It's a hard game. It's a rough game, but it's a game and it's playing. It's still playing.
Good. I like that.
Yes. So this characteristic of playing a game makes it more attractive and avoids somehow bad connotations, and so the attraction alone will help to spread the news and spread information about it. I think playing is really playing is a good key. The key to attract. Really interesting.
Yes, in the games that we are sort of coming up with as we go along, there really is no winning or losing in them. It's the playing itself, which is really the most fun.
Okay. Okay.
Could you tell more about it, Gary?
Watch the video.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up is because I had avoided the gaming platform because of the I don't know if it was the violence or the hyper competitive nature that some type of gaming, the first person shooter business. I just don't. I don't like that idea. Even though I've spent some time playing them, but I've just sort of avoided that. But then I think I sort of threw out too much of the value of the actual joy that comes from being able to play games. It's there's safety involved in playing games to make them enjoyable, and to risk one's. I spent way too much time on gambling, I suppose. I really enjoyed gambling, but I don't know that that's ultimately a wholesome way to spend one's energies.
Well, I would add that most of economics and finance and accounting is gambling, and it is a game, like a video game. A large extent is when you go to the store and you buy something, you think it's like just the norm, but you don't understand, like, if you saw the whole market structure, how terribly you're getting gamed by somebody. And to a large extent, the whole business world is a big gaming thing, how to get people to gamble on you and in stocks, and so all that stuff is inherent to a lot of the sort of way people are. And I think it's just a matter of making people aware that there's a huge research field behind it. Like, I've met many researchers, from physicists to other people who studied this stuff and published papers. You know what I mean? And like it's just a matter of making, I guess, people aware, like, that you can really define how to use these things to your advantage, and you don't really need to, like, I think that Jim really has a really deep ideas in his approach that are not obvious right away, but are really based on a lot of heavy research, backing it up.
The Casper group with our chain and Ethereum collaborating on consensus protocols uses a lot of game theory, and the whole mathematics that they call consensus games doesn't only apply to blockchains, it applies to human consensus as well.
Yes.
So I'm not, I'm not at the level of mathematics that they're at, but I appreciate it. And of course, I'm old enough so that I lived through a lot of the discoveries in game theory, and can sort of see the information problem in general as beating the bully. But in game theory, the always cooperate loses after 100 generations to the bully. The tit for tat loses after another 100. The generous tit for tat forgives and breaks cycles of retaliation. But the bully beats him after 3 generations. And then they have Pavlov, who learns. And he beats the bully after 500 generations? I don't know. But you get the basic idea. The question is, who beats Pavlov? And then you get into what is intelligence.
Problem solving, abilities of problem solving, maybe.
Common goals,
Yeah, well,
ultimately.
it's really managing complexity.
Yeah. Layers, multi-layers, complexity. In a university, we defined complexity as structure of multiple layers. Interacting, interconnected, interacting, and in interdependence. Very important. Interdependence, not solely dependence, but interdependence.
Right.
Multi-layers in interdependence. That was our definition long ago we used in mathematics in university.
Nice.
Just to base on something.
Yeah, I like that definition.
I remember that. We thought a lot of time on that, and we didn't have a handable, manageable, and graspable definition. So there's a general problem with definitions. Most definitions are useless, and no one was able to grasp complexity. What is complexity? Complexity is when everything comes together. Yes, but multi-structure. But the structure of multiple levels, layers, multiple layers in interdependence.
Yeah.
Influencing each other. The interdependence, they are influencing each other and depend on each other. And our only recommendation to solve complex problems was standardization, for example, finding principles to standardize, decomposition, strategies to analyze the interdependence and multi-layers without cutting their dependency. Very important. Whenever you have an interdependence and you make a cut somewhere to get an easier to handle ontology in philosophical sense, you cut the interdependence and you don't know what happens to the interdependence of the other layers. So this was the biggest problem. You cannot simply cut like a cake, cut in pieces and in slices and say, so this works here and this works there, and everything won't work together anymore. So you mustn't cut the complexity layers in simply in slices. That would be it would always be the wrong tactic.
Yeah, I mean the way that I've generally thought of it is, the number of dimensions or independent variables in the problem. People generally can't handle more than 3 dimensions. All of a sudden it becomes impractical. And, we have the same problem in computation. The processing explodes. So it's a slightly different angle, but I think your perspective there characterizes it very well.
Oh, there's another Michael. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Yes, have I got sound up? Yes.
Hello.
Sound up. Hi.
Hi.
Just came to this meeting late because I was in another meeting and saw the post. and you've been at it for an hour and a half.
Yes. Yes. Michael is one of the co-inventors of the social ledger.
Oh no. I'm a camp follower. I just drag on riding the bus. I had nothing to do with its creation. That was all Jim and Joachim.
He's
Well,
very modest.
No, I have reason for that. But
Well, Michael has maybe functioned more as an anchor than a
a boat anchor. I hang out and get in the way. That's about it. You got it right, Jim. Thank you.
well, he's Michael has been in the open money area for 35 years or so, and he's Mr. Currency Systems. He's very biased, but with good reason.
I like mine.
It's got to be. He wants to do it his way. Period. Whereas I want evolution. He wants revolution.
Well,
what he's doing
I can't.
simply, and I've always said, I'd love to experiment with it, and all we need is one more team member, and before Christmas, we will have open money integrated with Mattermost and the social ledger, more or less. It'll become, another dimension of the social ledger,
Well, it's a very fruitful, and I'm delighted at this possibility because the way Mattermost and the social ledger are coming together, and the sort of the Slack integration with MetaMaps, that's lovely.
Yes.
Robert. I'm very impressed with how that's fitting into the game. For myself, the only money that I have any interest in is relationship money, mutual credit. I don't understand the cryptography, the tokens, that whole world. It's way too smart for me. And so my distinction with Jim's process is Jim's playing with the tokens and the clever stuff. I'm Pig Simple, and my stuff is just inside networks to and from.
circular money.
Yeah, circular money. Very virtual, very low security issues, very low bandwidth issues, dirt cheap. But it's in a different field than the blockchain world and holochain and everything else. Totally different field.
Yeah, and and I'm the guy that's hopes to connect up Michael's stuff with the rest of the world. In one way, Michael's on his path of sponsorship, and I'm on my path of tokens achieving value because they've created value, and and they have utility.
Yeah. It's not money if it's not useful. Yeah.
Right.
I see the weather's the same outside your window there, Robert. It never seems to change.
Yeah. I'm gonna,
You're in Manhattan, Robert?
No, this is just a poster. I'm actually in Toronto.
Oh, literally, that's how my office window looks right outside.
Okay.
Except it's nighttime.
Yeah, I'm
I
also
thought
in
you
the
were in-
basement.
Oh, that's a fake.
Yeah, it's just a
Fake.
poster.
No, I thought you were in Manhattan too. Well, I was wondering to hear more from this circular currency. I've never heard of it, to be honest. I'd love to know more.
Well, basically, it's a closed loop. It's called mutual credit in its short form. That's the usual term that's applied to it. And it suggests that the 5-6 of us together are in a small network, and when I spend some money on Gary, I go minus 50 and he goes plus 50. And he can spend 20 with Robert and 45 with Jim. And so basically you just get this bouncing oscillation between the agents in the network. And the network might be half a dozen people, it might be 60,000 people. But the core issue is that whatever money you spend in such a network is inevitably coming back. You get the chance to earn it because it doesn't piss away. Whereas with conventional monies, fiat monies, national currencies, whatever, it doesn't know me, it doesn't give a shit about me, and when I spend it, it's gone. It's out of here, which means that I'm looking for more money again. That's just the cycle of the process. Whereas inside a mutual credit, my money is a spending energy that moves around inside that organism, and that's it. And you can do it in time-based, we'll measure in hours, or you can do it in a monetary measure, or pork belly futures if you want. There's no limit. The other factor on it is that it's highly distributable. That is, there's no cost at all to creating a currency. You just name it, and that name becomes the tag on the transaction from Michael to Gary in currency XYZ. That's it. So it's very straightforward. You can find a fair bit of it on openmoney.org. It's the most complete set of information about what we've done. It's about 15 years since we've updated that site, but it still tells the math pretty accurately.
Yeah, and because it's a really different paradigm, it takes a while. It's not easy to get it. Okay, and if I were to have to try to describe it, it's what we do is binary transfers. And when you go into the open money realm, it's not binary. It's like, I'm not exchanging an equal value with you. No, I don't know. But the value that's created.
But the value is only what others suppose it to be.
Exactly. That's all money ever is.
That's a perspective. It's very specific perspective from Karl Menger, all the classical economists from the Austrian School of Economics. But that was the original opposition to the Marxist view of the labor value theory, and the labor theory said value is created by the labor you put in. And Karl Menger was one of the first who, from the Austrian School of Economics, who said that it doesn't matter how if you need 500 or 600 hours to produce something, or to make corn or whatever, or produce meat. Only the market tells, and the market requests, the market demand. The market demand creates a value. Value is only. Karl Menger, one of his statements was, value is always subjective, and only the market creates a value by consent between demand and the specific supply, possible requests, and that's a difficult topic. It's intersubjectively not comparable, and it's interpersonally very, very difficult. It's a problem of markets in general.
Yeah, and
however,
people are trained like chickens to buy, and most of the things people buy have no value to me. I walk into a mall and there's nothing there.
Yeah, but that's a very deep topic.
By decentralizing value, you know, we're not constrained to other people's money.
The real point is that
how we
we have a physical economy of products and services and energy and whatever. So, if somebody gives me a hat, for the hat, I usually give them a monetary exchange. So the hat moves in one direction, the money moves in the other. And we have been constrained for a couple of thousand years with the idea that money is real stuff. And there is only so much of it. You've got to have a short supply of money, otherwise, it'd be no use, right? So you've got to have a short supply so we compete with it. But what this means is that we have an immense amount of slack in the economic system. Goods ready to be moved, but nobody able to make the measure for the transfer. And the point has been made many times that money is really an information system, a ticketing system. It's a measuring system. And to be short of money is like saying we're short of kilograms. It's an absurd concept. There's no shortage of kilograms. There might be shortage of rice or wheat or whatever, but the measure is infinitely available. So why are we short of money?
That's actually the foundation of why we made HealthCoin, is that if you base the currency on, say, seaweed, which is infinitely renewable, it can grow literally in the majority of the planet Earth, it has no ecological factor, would that currency ever have inflation? And the answer is no, it can't actually have inflation. It's because, as you said, it's about a mutual agreement between what it's measuring for what exchange. So it's really just a relative thing what's it called? A lot of that stuff is, I think, really interesting because it goes to show how little people are aware of their economic power.
Mm-hmm.
If people understood that if they put their money together in the right way, they would not have any form of scarcity to deal with at all. It's simply because they're not aware of it. And that's a good point. Yes. Thank you for the explanation.
I should also say, since we're in the kingdom of holochain, that Eric Harris Braun had quite a lot of impact on the entire open money development. He worked with me for 3 or 4 years from 2004, and I put a link in our group chat to some material that basically was the simple guide to open money, and that was the work I was doing with Eric 10 years ago. But enough of money. What else is going on?
What I personally find very interesting is the fact that everything can be currency, everything can be money. That what we use, the fiat currencies like dollar and euro and yen, they are just mediums mm-hmm. to interchange, to exchange, trade mediums. To measure is a very important trade, and everything could be valuated as a currency. As the problem is something this is very difficult, like meat or corn or whatever, when it would go to waste if you don't take care in foreseeable time. But probably it's just a thought, but probably if we would have a silver standard, silver is very much used in industry. Silver is very important in many industry parts and industrial mm-hmm. electronic connections and whatever. Gold too, but not as much as silver. And when we have a backing, when we would have a backing with silver or copper, inflation, you mentioned inflation a couple of minutes before. Inflation, I remember when Patrick Friedman's grandfather, Milton Friedman, once said in a lecture, that he himself thought that inflation is like a crime. That is very interesting for the first, because when I studied economics, all of my professors in economics told me that inflation is very necessary because inflation it's bubbling up. Inflation, in its core meaning, is bubbling up something. And when you ask deeper and you get into the deeper understanding of inflation, most economists, even today, all Keynesians, will tell you, and they are absolutely convinced of the fact, or of their opinion, that inflation is necessary because only when the companies think, when they expect, expecting is better, when they expect growing, increasing prices, only then they will produce more and hire more people. And therefore, a little bit of so-called controlled inflation is absolutely necessary for a working business cycle and working economy. And what they forget is when you create, like in Europe, Mario Draghi, the former Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs board member, investment officer, when Mario Draghi says we need that specific minimum inflation, we need it to run the business, to get it started better, and he completely forgets that all created, there is no controlled inflation. This is a myth. This is nonsense. All inflation, all created, he will never understand. He's a former board member of Merrill Lynch and a former board member of Goldman Sachs, and he absolutely a professor of macroeconomics, a former Italian. I thought he taught in Milano. I think it was Milano. And he still is a macroeconomics professor of economics. And the funny thing is, he does not understand that created inflation creates distrust too. Always. It creates distrust. You won't get him to understand that. He will never grasp that relation. And many others don't do. All Keynesians. John Maynard Keynes was a genius in mathematics, and he wasn't an economist at all. His strategy of a controlled economy is very interesting. It's tactical and strategical. It's worked out and fine-tuned. But in the end, it's just a mathematical model. It has now direct relation to reality. And all economists of today, the majority of economists today, believe in that, and they believe that inflation, really, they got somehow indoctrinated that inflation is necessary, absolutely necessary. So what we face now, and what we will face in the next upcoming years, with increasing use of not just the speculation. Speculation is just a liquidity tactics, and it has no inner value and no long-lasting strategy inside of it. It's a short-term. It's like gambling, but the trade, the cryptocurrency trade, a global trade, that is an interesting fact. And when the people who think that inflation is a normal thing, is necessary, they will get shocked. They will get shocked very hard, because cryptocurrencies, and no matter which one, the most it is important that they are restricted. Restriction, limitation is very important for cryptocurrencies. But all those people who believe in created inflation, they will get shocked, and it will be the first time for, I think, 200 or 300 years, at least 250 years. The first one who discovered it and wrote about it was Thornton, the economist, the British economist Thornton. He thought about that, and no one recognized him, and no one accepted his views. And those people will get shocked that the market has more power, and cryptocurrencies with an inherent restriction, limitation, will educate the people that the market is able to regulate itself without human intervention. And that is completely new. It does absolutely not matter which currency we use. It is dependent that the blockchain security is used. Blockchain security will reign supreme. But the interesting fact is the implicit self-regulation function of cryptocurrencies. And this will reform no matter what the people do. I heard, by the way, I heard in China there is now something like death threat or death sentencing for ICOs. People who start ICOs are facing death threats by government organizations. Very interesting. So the control freaks they face the threats of market self-regulation, and this will reform all economic thinking. This is new. This will be absolutely new. The concept behind it. This will be absolutely new. No one can say which cryptocurrency will be the best one or the most used one. But
well, there's all different. There's so many different economic models on crypto coins and value propositions and the way that the currency is engineered, which with the computer is possible now. I mean, Milton Friedman said that the money supply should be controlled by computer.
He was a very small guy. Did you ever know he was about 5'2"? I didn't know that. I had a conversation with him once. It didn't go anywhere. He was about the stupidest person I'd ever met. I mean, by stupid, I mean stupefied, in his own headlights. He only saw what he could see. He was flat Earth economist.
I love Milton. But,
well, good enough, but he was dumb as two short planks in my terms. I was, I mean, not unusual. People either see money as, well, there was a physicist called Soddy who said that money is the stuff that isn't real that you use to get stuff that is.
He was dealing with what is. Okay, yeah. He also talked about what could be, but he said we would never get that. There's too much power behind money the way it is for it to ever change. Except in his final years, he did predict the emergence of Bitcoin. In 2000.
He saw what he saw. He didn't see what he didn't. And
right.
That's par for the course. None of us see evidence.
Well,
sure.
The Meta Currency Project, and I guess Arthur Brock in particular, the idea of money being a current. Anything that flows is a current that we can see, and that C part of it is that we have a record or log of the activity, and that's what we're embodying on the social ledger, is seeing the current of what is transpired. And so we almost don't need any tokens, because the conversation is the work, is the creation of value, is the
it's pattern forming. What patterns are formed by the particular currencies? A currency that only moves amongst a few hundred people means an exchange of goods and services amongst those few hundred.
And the hollow currency that they're building will grow with the network, and so
it'll better fractally grow.
It should be inflation resistant in any case, although there is always the market and the speculators and such. But it has the value that we assign to it ourselves.
And it's also got computing cycles behind it.
Right.
I think there's
Yes, it represents.
And I think you got to look at the current deployment of the holo currency is as a feed mechanism to support the server net. Whether
Right.
it itself becomes a currency of any other utility beyond that, I think.
I bought a server, and I can set any price I want on Holo.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to charge anything; it'll be free.
But that is the option, Jim, of course. But what it also tends to is a depletion of any value expectation by users in a general space. They can't be sure what the money is good for and how it's going to be used. Now, as a flow back to the server package, it's great. But whether there's going to be much more action in that primary holo money, I actually doubt. I think there'll be far too many other options out there which have different parameters, different facilities, different availabilities.
It'll be a heterogeneous world with lots of currency, lots of facilities.
Millions and millions and millions of currency.
And it's because I see so much promise in the platform that Holochain is building that I think it will have value, and I'll probably, I will buy Holo mainly to support the project.
Oh, I'm completely convinced of the value of Holochain. I think Holochain is terrific, and I think that all sorts of things will come through its agency. But I'm not that persuaded by the whole by the universality of the current C framework. I think there's things that Arthur hasn't factored in.
Right. It's mutual credit. It's based, and it isn't a final answer.
It's an evolution, Jim. We have no idea where this is going. It's.
Well, I think you know.
No, I don't. But I just know things are going to change. That is predictable.
So someday we won't need money.
Well, what I think was great about hearing about Michael and Jim and Dirks is how we could put all that stuff in MetaMap, like from Robert's stuff. Like currently we had a long conversation, and the ability to map together the concepts we covered, that's I think really beautiful, because MetaMap really makes that easy to do. And you can make a reusable sort of, MetaMap is from my field, it's usually called an ontology or an annotator. Mm-hmm. And it's great because we could cover these concepts, store them in a MetaMap, and then reuse them. And then when, we can find a way to cover a lot of information in a short graph, like in Robert's work. And then
that's precisely what we're doing with the glass speed game in MetaMaps, I think, Robert.
Yeah, but I think there's sort of a difference in terms of what's possible. And what I hear Michael saying is that we could be a lot more intentional and deliberate about creating kind of a conceptual map that somebody else that wasn't part of the conversation could drop into and get value from as well. So it does take sort of a practice and work. Obviously, the map doesn't make itself. So yeah, that's actually something I'm very interested in. I've had problems sometimes in the past doing this, finding other people that even get the idea that you could do this and then want to participate in such a thing. And because it's not easy, right, to kind of bring together our brains and our own conceptual mappings of things and somehow come to a coherent kind of agreement or something that makes sense even on a map that's at the intersection between our conceptual.
It's very complicated. Like there's 4 big plays. There's money, sex, food, and death. Those are the ones that really matter. You don't argue with any of them, and they really sort of carry a bit of weight in the world. And the thing about money is people have to play before they'll do it. Monopoly, we learned our monetary ideas by playing Monopoly when we were 5 years old. And it's really about as deep as most people go with their understanding of money, is what they learned from a game and then implement in the world. And I think gaming the money process, and that's what I really attracted to the possibility of MetaMaps as a vehicle for that, getting people play, because people will play at a level that they won't actually do until they've got a couple of years confidence behind them. So give them the confidence in the game space and they will move out into a real one. So that's my ambition for MetaMaps is it's a game space where we learn.
Yeah, well, I'd say I'm after Anders' kind of game recently that he hosted just on a spreadsheet. I'm definitely wanting to host some more games myself using MetaMaps. So if you are in the holochain space or if you want to participate, just let me know, because I'll be trying to organize maybe through a doodle or something to find a time that a group can get together and play with, both using the tool and using the tool to actually do something, not just mess around and see the affordances, but yeah, to actually play a game. So that means creating some simple rule structure as well, which the glass bead game that we played before is a very simple example of. And I think it works nicely, even for meetings such as these, to have kind of a dynamic agenda where people just show up and drop some nodes in of what they want to talk about, and then you can, because you can see where each other's pointers are on the screen, which I obviously couldn't show in the little demo I gave you earlier, you can dynamically associate yourself with where your priority is on the map and sort of quickly as a group maybe see what everybody else wants to talk about. And then, yeah, ideally it would get to the state of what Michael was saying earlier about we're actually putting concepts down and labeling relationships and figuring out, maybe even, like, obviously that's where it gets more difficult, figuring out sort of systems through the concepts. And obviously that's a really nice harvesting to wind up with at the end, if you had kind of a map that made sense of the whole conversation in a way. And then you could share that as an output instead of a 3-hour-long video that hardly anybody's ever going to go back into.
Yeah, and that's what I think. I do that in my work, actually. I work in, AI stuff and ontologies and all that jazz. And I've learned that, like, a lot of this stuff takes, like, probably several months of hard research to even understand a little bit of it, not to mention learn it in depth. And, like, other people, like we learned today, like, when you put a few people together, the complexity increases dramatically from our call this morning to right now, just because there's more people and limited bandwidth and time for that bandwidth to get across. You can only say so much, right? So, like, that's what I love about Jim. Like, he has such an inherent understanding of all these things. It's just like, how do we, like, if we could get it so we can get, like, groups like this all the time integrating through MetaMaps, and then just have people manage the MetaMaps, you could theoretically avoid a lot of the bandwidth issues that come through regular communication by just following the maps. Mm-hmm. And basically you can build a big map of how social ledger evolved from the early gestation to the maturity phase. Like how people come in, how they talk to each other, who talk to who, and how those concepts and systems form. And I think that's, like, a big thing that is not to be underestimated. So I really loved learning about MetaMaps. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, sorry, one other thing I'd add is just that currently MetaMaps does work a little more like Wikipedia, where it's all, well, at least the metamaps.c, the public version, it's an open source project. So if you want your own instance, you can crank one out. But the metamaps.cc is technically more of like a centralized knowledge base, where I know with social ledger stuff, or at least in version 2.0 that I heard Jim reference, that ideally it would be distributed and not just under one group's big server. But MetaMaps isn't there yet either, so there's kind of lots of different project transitions that need to happen to fully get sort of in the distributed space with it as well. Because, yeah, when you're talking about even Wikipedia stuff, it'd be neat to have a more federated wiki where our personal subjective views on some of these concepts are able to have a space to live instead of us trying to converge like Wikipedia on one neutral point of view. Yeah.
And Gary was just talking about that before with the turning it from governance to game, which is great. So it's like, it's amazing that like how for serendipitous.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, well, the other thing I'd add is just, I don't know, in some sense it sort of scares me if like say 100 people decided, let's use MetaMaps for this massive, huge project, because like I said earlier, sometimes it's a little buggy sometimes, and it's not exactly the perfect, I'd say, data structure to hold like this kind of global brain scale, I don't know what to call it, but at least it would give us something to play around with, like Jim said, with experimentation. We'll learn what is missing and what needs to be made next through the experimentation.
That's why we're going to put it on holochain, right?
Yeah.
So that it can scale.
Yeah.
Well, the evolution is the key, not the actual capacity. Everything evolves. Nothing is born with initial capacity to handle like collective intelligence. So use MetaMaps and it'll evolve. Use other tools, other ideas, they're going to evolve with it. Like, you know, once people aggregate together in clusters and there's a sort of system of communication, you can easily make anything evolve. You know, I'm not worried about, development-wise, I'm not worried. We can get tons and tons of developers for this type of stuff. And we can get tons and tons of people. It's just a matter of making them aware of what it is. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if people rally behind the possibilities that we're talking about here, they will do the work. The thing is that they tend to work on their own thing rather than cooperate, and that's our challenge, is developing a sociocratic polyarchy that facilitates the collective intelligence, and and we want to make that a game out of it. You know, I think that the glass bead game is a good example. I mean, it's essentially the same thing that we did today. I mean, we collected a bunch of ideas, and then we talked about them. We didn't move them around. It's not so easy to move them around in a Google document, although it's not that hard. And we didn't fill in much detail about the topics. And on the side, I was listing the enablers of collective intelligence as we went along, which was sort of a side exercise during the conversation. But, you know, this is a collaborative environment. You can go in here and add notes, although it would be much better to do it on a MetaMap. I agree.
well, that's a project I think we should do with Robert and Patrick and other, you know, especially Gary. Gary seems like he's quite apt. He doesn't like to talk much, but he's got a really deep, you know, like the value of the words, I got it. And I think that sort of thing is key, because when I tell people about it, they're under the impression it's like a scenario thing, like a private corporation basically using you to do your work, and then they're going to benefit. And you know what I mean? Like that's why the decentralized thing is so important, because it's it's very much suggesting it's not like we don't own it. It's very much a community tool that everyone should be using, and it's not like anyone has some control over it that nobody else does. You know what I mean? Like, it's like explaining the idea of what Jim is talking about.
The sociocratic polyarchy. Nobody's in
Panarchy.
what?
Panarchy.
Panarchy?
Panarchy.
I don't know if it's panarchy. I have to look back at exactly what that is. A polyarchy means that there's all the organizations are connected consensual with consensual decision making and double linking between teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's individuals belonging to many organizations, and the organizations coming to developing consensual solutions, and obeying, good decision practices and enablers of collective intelligence. Because otherwise the self-organizing groups tend to become dysfunctional after they reach a certain size, unless they have a hierarchical structure. And that's that's the challenge I see, is overcoming that.
I have a question. Is panarchy, archy means ruler.
Mm-hmm.
Anarchy means no ruler, from Greek, just translated. And panarchy means somehow overall ruler. So panarchy.
It's actually I put a little text up that I just pulled from the Wikipedia entry on panarchy. It's on the group chat, and it's less defined by the word pan than you would suppose. Although it's partly Pan the god, Greek god, but it's also personal area network.
Okay, great.
It's also
Personal area network ruling. But who is a ruler in a personal area network?
we're all kings in
Okay.
the social ledger.
That is what precisely. That is what in his later years Robert Nozick defined when he got attacked for his book Anarchy, Utopia, and the State, his famous work in Harvard, and he got attacked. In his later years, he defined a new perspective, and that's where he created the concept of communities and communitarianism. And it really is the case that in these communities there is not one single ruler. There are really all people involved in a somehow really possible democracy. It's not like the majority rules. And remember, the old Greeks, when they created the democracy and called it real democracy, they had slaves. 70% of the population were slaves. That's a funny thing about it. It's crazy and thought provoking
Well, this is the big challenge of digital life and our other communities.
Community.
Is how
Yes.
to organize and without having a hierarchy. And sociocracy.
Great.
Sociocracy provides part of the solution. Okay, so the sociocratic interlinking circles gives a way of percolating the best ideas to the top. Or not, there is no top.
It's a way of distributing. It's a way of distributing the best ideas effectively, rather than getting them to the top.
And, and the people that do the work generally make the decisions that affect them. We're really employing a combination of sociocracy and self-management. But what happens is the structure of sociocracy is scalable. So it doesn't break down as the organization grows. Now, there has to be some organization in terms of the linking of circles. It's like in our chain, okay, the governance committee circle has a link to the board of directors. So there's a member of the committee who's also a member of the board of directors. And he represents the board of directors to the circle. And any consensual agreement that we make, it's sort of his responsibility to make sure that it doesn't, conflict with the fiduciary responsibility of the board for the corporation. By having a double link, we get collective intelligence because it's not one mind that's connecting the two circles. It's two minds. It becomes a group thing. And you get 4 times the cooperation when you double the links, okay, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a famous problem in graph theory too. Like neural networks is really exploiting that, exactly what you just said. So, I mean, a lot of people, like literally, that's how artificial intelligence kind of, I think, is built. Like it's exploiting exactly that sort of ability to use connections in a smart way. Well, I was hoping you'd go in detail about that, Jim.
Well, in the social planning domain, what is it? The new world global domain. Okay, they're looking at global structures and how they can be connected. Okay, and the social ledger, the social ledger does both top down and bottom up. You create structures, but people need to be able. People commit to activities in order to build these organizations, and the sociocratic principles are what drive inclusiveness and rigor in terms of the group processes. I'm not getting into that, getting into the reinforcement I think that you were talking about. But I guess, what I'm thinking is that constructing this fabric is the thing that will enable it. And if we're lazy and we just let the thing self-evolve without making any structure, it's going to become dysfunctional. This has been shown again and again. Very simply, we just have to reify that structure using something like the social ledger that enables people to
Build trust and reputation with each other.
Yeah, and build organizations by peer-to-peer contracts and commitment to activities that create, when they do it, when they say /dig activity and they define an activity, they're creating a structure. They're working out loud. People can coordinate with them because they can see what other people are doing.
Yeah, Gary was talking about that earlier in the first call.
Well, we've certainly we're coming on 2 hours and a half here. It's been a good conversation, and it's great to meet Dirk and bring him into give him a little introduction to our world here, which is many organizations. It's not one organization. So we're already a sociocratic polyarchy to some extent, but we still have yet to define the skeleton of that organism in the social ledger reasonably well. And I think what's come out of this is that it has to be gamified in order for people to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good outcome of this. And we've been talking about gamification from the beginning. People need to be secure, so we need to gamify. So we have the security game that we were looking to build so that people would build a strong pseudo-anonymous unique identity that we need unique people identities in order for us to have any kind of democratic process. Now, in the Archain co-op, we have the teams or circles that are interlinked that we're trying to construct, and we haven't defined them well yet, but I guess that's part of our mission in the governance committee. And governance isn't telling people what to do at all. It's creating an environment where people can excel. As a Washington State co-op, okay, everything comes down to a majority vote of the members of the co-op. But it's recognized that that's a bad way to make decisions. Well, it's large. Not everybody recognizes it, but significant leadership of the co-op understands that. And so, what the members are consenting to in their majority vote is a consent-based governance model, which is essentially sociocratic, although some people may use different words for it.
Okay, it's been enjoyable. I need to go now. Nice to meet you, Dirk, and then Michael. Glad you could join us again. This is great. It's looking like we're something starting to happen with the social ledger and MetaMaps and a lot of other projects. So I hope we can welcome you on board.
Delighted to be here, Gary. Delighted.
Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right.